You've been told your whole life that your brain is the problem, that you're too much or not enough, that you just need to try harder, focus more, get it together. I'm Dr. B, and I'm here to tell you that everything you've been told is wrong. You're bright, you're gifted, you're wired for something extraordinary. What you're missing isn't willpower, and it isn't a higher dose. It's skills, specific, learnable skills that nobody ever taught you. This is living beyond ADHD, where we stop managing your limitations and start unleashing your brilliance. Let's get into it now. Welcome back to Living Beyond ADHD. I'm Dr. B, and today I want to tell you something that nobody told me for the first 30-something years of my life. Nobody taught you how to learn. Not how to learn for your brain, not how attention actually works, not what your particular nervous system needs in order to engage, absorb, and retain information. None of that. What you got instead was a pile of content, a deadline, and a test. And if you couldn't perform on demand, you got a label. Today, we're going to talk about why that happened, what it cost you, and what actually works instead. And I'm going to start by telling you my own story because I lived this deeply. It took me 15 years to complete a 4-year undergraduate degree. I want you to really hear that. 15 years for a degree that was supposed to take 4. And here's what I need you to understand about those 15 years. I wasn't failing. I wasn't lazy. I wasn't uncommitted or unfocused or incapable. I was searching. I kept changing my major. I kept transferring to different schools. And every single time, I wasn't running away from something. I was running towards something. I was looking for an institution that would actually educate me, that would teach me to think, to connect ideas, to build something real with what I was learning. Instead, I kept finding things was the same thing in a different building. Here are the facts, memorize them, give them back to us on a test, and we will call that an education. That is not an education. That is a transaction. And my brain, my gifted, discerning, high-capacity brain, kept refusing to accept it as the real thing. At the time, I didn't have the language for what was happening. I thought something was wrong with me. The system certainly implied that something was wrong with me. But what was actually happening was that I was a gifted underachiever, someone whose capacity far exceeded what the environment was asking of her, and I was searching for conditions that matched who I actually was. And I finally found them, but not until graduate school. When I got to my master's and my doctoral programs, everything changed. And I mean everything. The courses were 4 weeks long, one at a time, not 6 simultaneously. I got to go deep on one thing, master it, demonstrate what I'd actually learned, and then move on to the next. No more splitting my attention across 6 subjects. No more context switching. No more half learning everything and fully learning nothing. And the way we demonstrated learning, we got to choose a paper, yes, but also a debate, a presentation, a project, a board game. We showed what we knew in a way that made sense for how our minds worked. And I got to choose the sequence of my own coursework in the order that made sense to me, not in the order that some administrative committee decided was standard. I thrived. For the first time in my academic life, I actually thrived. And I walked away not just with 2 advanced degrees, but with a lived understanding of exactly what brain-aligned learning looks like, because I had finally experienced it. And then I spent the next chapter of my life building it for everyone else. A few days ago, I received a message on Instagram from a high school senior in Korea. He had come across my writing on the gifted underachiever, and he wrote to tell me that for the first time in his life, he finally understood himself. And then he asked me a question that I have been asked in one form or another by virtually every person I have ever worked with. He said, "How do I study in a way that actually works for my brain? And how do I increase my concentration? Because mine feels so low." And what I heard underneath that question was not a struggling student. What I heard was a bright, motivated, hungry young person who had never once been taught how to learn, and who had spent years believing that the problem was him. Does that sound familiar to you? Here's the truth about concentration that I wish someone had told both of us much earlier. Concentration is not a fixed character trait. It is not something you either have or you don't. For a brain wired the way many of our brains are, gifted, ADHD, novelty-seeking, highly sensitive, concentration follows meaning. It follows relevance. It follows genuine engagement and real challenge. When your brain has a real reason to focus, it can hyperfocus in ways that astonish people. The problem was never that you couldn't concentrate. The problem was that you were being asked to concentrate on things that your brain correctly identified as disconnected from anything that mattered to you. That is not low concentration. That is high standards. Okay, so let's get practical, because I don't just want to reframe this for you. I want to equip you. Here's what actually works for brains like ours. First, work in focus bursts, not marathon sessions. 25 to 30 minutes of real focus than a genuine break. Look up the Pomodoro technique. It works because it matches how attention actually functions in a high novelty brain. Short sprints, not forced endurance. Second, give your brain a reason before you begin. Before every study session or work block, ask yourself, why does this matter to me, even slightly? Your brain runs on meaning. It needs a why. Find even a small thread of relevance and pull it. That's what opens the door to focus. Third, move your body before you ask your brain to perform. 10 minutes of movement before a focused work session increases the exact neurotransmitters, dopamine and norepinephrine, that regulate attention and executive function. This is not optional for our brains. It is neurological priming. Fourth, stop rereading and start retrieving. Rereading feels productive and does almost nothing. What actually moves information into long-term memory is retrieval practice, closing your notes and actively pulling out what you just learned. Quiz yourself. Teach it out loud to no one. Write everything you remember before you open the book again. The struggle of retrieval is not a sign that you don't know it. It is exactly when learning happens. Fifth, protect your sleep like the learning tool that it is. Sleep is when your brain consolidates everything that you took in that day. 4 hours of sleep after studying until 2 a.m. loses more than it gains. You will retain more from a focus session followed by real sleep than from hours of exhausted cramming. And sixth, remove the phone from the room, not just the screen. Face down on your desk is not enough. Your brain knows it's there and continues to monitor for it. The mere presence of a smartphone reduces available cognitive capacity. Put it in another room. What feels like deprivation for 5 minutes will feel like clarity by minute 15. Here's what I want you to take away from today. The gap between your gifts and your output is not evidence of a character flaw. It's evidence of a mismatch between how your brain works and how you were taught to use it. And mismatches can be corrected. That young man in Korea found my work at 17. Most of you found it later. Some of you much later. And regardless of when you got here, you got here. And that means the next chapter gets to look different. If today's episode resonated, I want to invite you to go deeper with me. On June 23rd, I'm hosting a live virtual masterclass. Real teaching, real tools, the actual framework for what it means to close that gap and start living in full alignment with who you are. The registration link is in the show notes. Go grab your spot. And if you know someone, a teenager, a young adult, a friend, a colleague who's living with that painful distance between who they are and what they're producing, share this episode with them, please. Sometimes the most important thing that we can do for someone is hand them the words that finally explain them to themselves. Thank you for being here. Thank you for doing this work. I'm Dr. B, and this is Living Beyond ADHD. That's what I have for you today. I hope something landed. I hope something shifted, even just a little, because that's how this works. Not all at once, but one insight, one skill, one episode at a time. You are not your diagnosis. You are not your history. You are a brilliant adult who deserves a life that actually works. And that life is buildable. I've seen it. I've lived it. If you're ready to go further, come find me at drbarbaracohen.com. All the episodes are there, along with information about my 9-month program, Get Shit Done, GSD, where we do this work for real, together, all the way through. Subscribe wherever you listen. Share this with someone who needs it. And I will be back next week with more truth. I'm Dr. B. This is Living Beyond ADHD. Take care of that brilliant brain of yours.